Noob D&D Dad here. This is going to be session number 14, my DM experience as a brand new noob D&D of Dragon of Icespire Peak of my son's group in Mountains Toe Goldmine, this nasty place. So they're going to be finishing up their dungeon crawl in here because I've learned from my friend that anywhere that's just room to room to room is basically a dungeon crawl, even though it's not an actual dungeon. But yeah, this is session 14 of my son's campaign. And I've also done 14 sessions of the veterans group campaign. So I am a new DM with 28 DMing games in. So here we go. So one thing I really appreciate having like a super experienced D&D player in my son's group is that he can help my son with just general D&D stuff. And so as they're navigating through here, one thing that my friend suggested as like a rule of dungeoning is that you just keep your right hand on the wall and you just follow that, because eventually you will get through the whole thing. So they actually stuck with that most of the time throughout the gold mine. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little rule. All right, so after basically burning everything in here, they're sticking to the right and trying to figure out what to do. So they get to this door at M14, and it says that it's the miners' retreat and they're hungry. And so I decided that I would have the old dwarf miners they're all emaciated. I decided that they would have barricaded themselves in the door. And so they go up to the door and they listen and they hear like whispering. They hear like, shh, it's them. Like, be quiet, be ready for them, right? And so I tried to have the whispers and talking sound a little bit afraid, but also defiant. But the players interpreted that as being the were-rats, because I guess they just have decided that the were-rats are now afraid of them. So the players are like, let's bust down the door and start shooting everyone. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to shoot these starving dwarves. So that first they just bash a hole through the door so they can just see, because they try to open it, but it's like barricaded. So they bash a hole through the top part of the door so they can see, and they see all these dwarves behind like a tipped over desk, and they're like, don't come any further, like we'll get you. And then they're like, the players had to convince these guys that they're not the were-rats. But I have there's 5 of them and they're starving. And what I decided is that there's like their leader is the guy who's like, he can move around, but the rest, so they propped themselves up on this desk to look defiant, like with their helmets and their axes sticking up, but really they're so weak that they actually can't even do that. They're just propped up on there. And so the players come in and they immediately start giving them rations, and they have the last little bit of their green mushroom bread that they got in Nomengard. So they're like, eat this, it'll make you feel great. Because one thing I incorporated in Nomengard is I had a lot of the mushroom food that they eat just make them feel like really good and confident. It doesn't like give them advantage or increase anything on their rolls or stats, but I just tell them that it just makes them feel like really good and confident. So they give these dwarves the last of their green mushroom bread. So he gives it to Larry the dwarf, who's their leader, first, and he takes a little bit of it, but then he breaks it up. He breaks the bread into multiple pieces, and he takes it over and he gives it to each of his guys, and they all start nibbling on it. So that's just a little bit of the personality I put into this room of dwarves. But it is actually really cool to see the compassion of the players when they come across like just NPCs. You know, you could just be like, get out of my way, I want to kill monsters and I want treasure. But it's really cool to see them take of their own resources, like including gold in some cases, to give to these NPCs to help them recover and to help them on their way. Actually, I thought that was pretty cool. And speaking of which, so I don't remember the exact order they went into every one of these places, but there's in M9, there's supposed to be a dead body. And I did the same thing with the army veterans group, where I had the body sitting there and he's like stabbed to death. So a couple things. I kept the same when the army group like starts searching his pockets. They're like, what's in there? And I'm like, it's blood. Now there's blood on your hand. And then the rogue in the army group took the guy's wedding ring. And I said that inside is inscribed the name. But when my son's group finds this dead body, I thought it was really interesting because they Same thing. I decided to have blood in the pocket just as like a gross little like thing where it's like, yeah, you're reaching the pocket of a person who's been like brutally killed. There's, you're not gonna. It's not just all clean, right? So I am trying to keep it clean for my wife, or Freudian slip, for my son because he's 8. But maybe I'm also keeping it clean because I know that she's watching and listening sometimes. So they reach in there. They don't find anything. They don't take a wedding ring off or anything. But what they do is they realize that this is one of the coworkers and friends of the miners that they've found before. And so they actually take his body back to them and present it to them so that they can properly deal with it. And they like they take his jacket off and put it over his face and lay him on the ground. It's actually like really, I was very surprised that they did that. Another thing hospitality wise that they did for the starving dwarves that they found was, so they find them over here, which is everything's kind of destroyed. But over here in M12 there's 6 wooden cots and a door. So it's kind of a back to your wall kind of a situation. Also, the wooden cots are intact, I decide. And so they go and tell the dwarves, they're like, hey, we found this room that might be a better fit for you guys. So they help them get over there and get situated in that room. So from then on, all their interactions, like every time they go back and talk to them, they're in this room, and they created a knock system. So they have to knock 3 times and they know they're not a were-rat. And my son actually forgot that one time. So he went and knocked twice. And then I have the dwarves be like, all right, we're going to jump out and kill him, and then like we were all just quietly waiting to see if my son would remember that he needs to do 3 knocks, which I think my friend reminded him or he remembered. But I did want there to be a consequence of not remembering your secret knock that you guys just came up with a few minutes ago. All right. By far, my favorite moment in this place is what's in this room here. M11. There is a carrion crawler in here, which looks like this. Nasty creature. So you're actually getting this a little bit out of order because I've already ran the Mountains Toe Gold Mine quest for the Army Veterans group. So this is actually my second time running this environment for a group. But my son's group, like I've mentioned, they play a lot slower and methodically. But once you see how the veterans group handled Mountains Toe Goldmine, it's completely different. So because they just approached it from a different way, they had accomplished other stuff before they got here. So story-wise, like it's wildly different, which is why like this Essentials kit, like even if I just had this and like nothing else D&D related, like there's so much you can do in here. Like seriously, this is the second time running through this level, I guess, and it is completely different. But the carrion crawler, I love driving this thing. So it has like little tentacles, and so first of all, the players go up there and the door's like moist and wet, which starts grossing them out right away because last time I did this, I had there be like a whole bunch of like spider eggs. And so this time I was like I just love creeping them out, and it really works. And so the door's wet and smelly, and they decide that they're going to back up and just start blasting it with fire bolts or something. But they're missing, right? Like I came up with a really low DC in my head, and they're just missing. They're rolling so bad. So I have like, they're shooting at it, and they're just like my son hits it once, right? And it means it made like a burnt spot with like glowing embers, but it clearly it needs to get hit again to break a hole through. And so they all just like start shooting it, and they're just missing it. And so the way we describe it is there's this hallway of all these guys, and they're just like pew, 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 and they're just shooting these fireballs and just missing everywhere. It was really funny. Everyone was laughing, but also frustrated that they couldn't blast open the door. So once they blast a hole through the door, they look through and they can see light coming through, but the light is highlighting drips of like mucusy slime, and they all start getting really creeped out, and they see the carrion crawler. They actually hurry and do the mend spell to close up the hole, and they basically are like nope. But then it starts banging on the door, so the door's like and it's starting to break, and like the players, so I have the NPC Don John just like run off down the stairs, and then one by one the players start leaving as it's breaking down the door. So my son's like, I'm out of here, and so he runs back with the dwarves as well. And then the new player who's playing, I keep on saying warrior but he's fighter, is like, I'm gonna run to the bottom of the stairs, which puts him out of sight, right? Because it's like a little bit of a curve. And so what's left is my friend the sorcerer by himself as this creature blasts through the door. So I have them all roll initiative, right? But then after they roll initiative, they all took off. So my friend's standing there by himself. So I'm like, and he does like a witch bolt, right? And so what I do is I have it be like anime, where all of a sudden his hair and all of his clothes are like blowing in the wind, and he's by himself fighting this creature. And one by one, they start coming back and helping. But I just love this creature, like how I just decided that there's just like slime coming out of it. So like when he was breaking down the door, there's just slime coming from underneath the door. And then as they're like shooting him, well, whenever they break its skin, I have it like split open, and like the kind of the guts from the tauntaun from Empire Strikes Back are like like stick out of it, almost like a hernia, and just like slime everywhere. But the tentacles are like flapping around really fast. And I actually totally ripped off Independence Day, the movie, because there's light coming from the tunnel, and then all these tentacles are going really fast. And so I basically describe it as like a strobe light behind it, like straight up ripping off the scene in Independence Day with the alien in the lab. But there's just slime everywhere, and it's coming towards them, and it's biting them, and it's trying to grab them with its tentacles and stuff. And as they're fighting it, just more and more slime's coming out. And so as the tentacles are whipping around, they're starting to hit slime. So now there's like slime being slapped and splashed everywhere. And anyway, these guys just wore it down with a witch bolt, a crossbow, a witch bolt, a fire thing, a witch bolt, just like shooting this thing like over and over and over. And they took some damage too. And then finally, I think my son used his silvered crossbow and like shot it through the eye. And I had it have like an eye, like an inner eye cover and an outer eye cover. And the crossbow, as it was flying towards him in slow motion, like the inner eye's trying to close and the outer eye's trying to close, but before they can, the crossbow goes through and it just totally kills it, like splats. And then it falls on the ground, and then it's just like slime just starts leaking out of it. And they were kind of in a hurry to keep going after this. And so they kept looking around, and I was like, that was a pretty hard fight. Like, I want to have like something like in its body or whatever, like some treasure to find. But I decided, spur of the moment, that because they left and kept exploring, but I decided that. So I think they went back to talk to the dwarves, and then they went back again to keep exploring. I decided that this thing was just gonna have babies inside of it. So I decided that there was 4 slime trails that just left in random directions away. And so they basically had to track down these like slimy little babies. So they'd kick open a door and it would be like, Wah! And start coming at them, and they would just kill it and like one shot kill all these slimy babies. But that was fun to just make it just that much creepier. Okay, so once they go into M10, which I believe was supposed to be the office, yeah. So were-rats ransacked this cave, whose furnishings include a desk, chair, empty wooden chest, and a cot. I decided that because their battle was so hard won, that would not be an empty chest. So in this book, I'm very rapidly finding that I absolutely love page 137, like this random like coinage for the challenge rating where they roll and then they roll again to see what they get, and also the treasure hoard. And so I had them roll. Actually, what I did is I had them each roll to like investigate, and whoever rolled the highest, I'm like, okay, so you find all this, right? So it ended up being my son. So in the chest, I think he was rolled down here, so he ended up getting some 50 gold piece worth of gems, right? So then I go back over to here, and he rolls on here the number of times that he rolled. So he gets a handful of these. But I don't know if it's like gambling or what, but I swear I am addicted to the random treasure tables in here. I love it so much. I think I might get more joy out of like, it's almost like a dad at Christmas seeing the joy on their kids, like being the DM, being like, I grant you the following treasure in this box, like roll a D100. Like whenever the players like kill something or loot someplace and I say roll a D100, they get really excited and I love it. I love using the random treasure thing in here. Okay, in the desk, I have them find a homebrew weapon that I've been really thinking a lot about it. It's a blowgun with a box of 5 darts with a skull and crossbones on the box. And I decide that it's a 1d4 piercing, but it's either gonna, if it hits, it's gonna, what is it gonna do? It's going to make them unconscious for 30 seconds if they get hit, or they might have to roll like a certain thing to do the unconscious, but it's going to do 1d4 piercing and unconscious for 30 seconds. So it's a blowgun with that. So I'll have to decide the range of it as well. I think there's a blowgun stat somewhere. Anyway, I made this homebrew weapon. I made the grenades for the Veterans Lounge group from that Prepper's Cabin. I do want to have these players come across a Prepper's Cabin with some grenades in it as well, homemade grenades, with the same exact stats as the one from the Army Veterans group, because I'm DMing for 2 groups. But I'm really proud of this blowgun with 5 darts that can make them go to sleep. And the one player's like, my friend's like, I'm gonna lick the tip of this thing, and I was like, ha, 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 because I was excited for him to go unconscious. But he's like, just kidding. I was like, oh, dang it. Okay, so they clear this whole place out, and they find some more food and water, and they replenish their own stores, but they also bring it back to the dwarves. And they're so thoughtful of these guys who are starving and emaciated. They're like, instead of just telling them where the food is, like they're going to haul it over to them, to their little room, so they can continue to recover. Also, Don John is now officially going to stay with the dwarves. He's like, cool, mission accomplished. I'm with these guys. We'll rebuild here together. And the dwarves are so grateful that these guys have cleaned it out that the Larry goes over to the other dwarves and is kind of faced away. And then he comes back over and he hands them 3 rings, 3 gold rings. One has a ruby, one has a sapphire, and one has an emerald. And it's so funny. He's like, thank you so much for helping us here. He's like, these have been in our family for generations. I also had the dwarves say laddie as much as possible, but they're like, these have been in our family for generations. We want you to have these because we're so appreciative. And it's so funny. Like my son is like, I'll take the ruby and sapphire ones. And it's like, no, there's 3 of you and 3 rings. Like you get 1. So he takes the ruby one. The little nephew takes the sapphire one, and my friend takes the emerald one, which is cool because it matches his color scheme of his character. But yeah, they all put them on. They put these rings on. I might have them come into play more, but I just decided that it'd be cool for them to give them a token of appreciation. And a lot of these places I go, I like doing that. Like the NPC that gave him his house, and then also in Nomengard, I can't remember if I told you this, but the king and queen, they mash up a special mushroom that was kept in a bag by the throne, and they mush it on their head, and then he like anoints them as an honorary gnome of Nomengard. I did the same thing for the veteran group as well. So that's Mountain Toes Goldmine. They head back to Phandalin. They get their reward from the town master who opens the slot and just puts the bag of gold up there and just starts pushing on the back of the bag. So out of the front of the bag, just one piece comes out at a time. So they're getting used to this. Also, every time they knock on his door, I have him be like, "There's no dragon food in here," and they just like roll their eyes, right? Because the guy's so afraid of dragons. But yeah, they got their next quest is the Butterskull Ranch quest, and I think this one will be a fun one for these guys. But we had to end, right? Because my son had to go to bed. We were past his bedtime. But they have a house in Phandalin, so it's like, hey, you guys got your quest. You're going to go do a long rest in your house. So that's really cool that they have like a home base now. All right, I am having an absolute blast doing this. So this is session 14 for my son. This has been that, and I'm having so much fun. Like, I don't know if I'm having more fun than the players, but like this is like the time of my life right now. I don't know. I have never been a fantasy person other than Lord of the Rings, and I told you the one time I played D&D a long time ago, but like I am having so much fun doing this. Like I absolutely love this. So I appreciate all your comments and support and everything, because it's very encouraging, but it's also fun to see how many people out there are having fun watching a new player doing this. I was telling my wife like about all the support and nice comments I'm getting, and I was thinking of something like that I love, like Star Trek The Next Generation. Like if there was like a YouTube series that's like brand new person watching Star Trek The Next Generation and like talking in depth about each episode, like I would absolutely be there and I'd be so excited for it. So I wonder if there's just a lot of like old, not old, but like you've played a lot D&D. Some of you guys are old. You know who you are, but playing a lot of D&D people that are just like, who's this new guy playing? Like, anyway, I have loved all the interaction and everyone being so cool and nice, and I love hearing everything you have to say. And there's been so many suggestions people have given that I've absolutely used or am planning on using. So anyway, just thank you for coming on this Noob DM journey with me, and having a blast. Players are having fun, and I've got the veterans group DM happening later this week, and then doing for these kids again later this week as well. So the journey continues, and join me on this thing. And let me know if you're watching my artwork commentary shorts as well. Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye.